In ancient Rome, there was a poem about a dog who found two bones. He picked up one, and then the other, he went psycho, and he dropped dead. Freedom's choice. I was going through a video I did last night. Sometimes I sound so unhinged, it's funny. But, yeah, I have to be careful with some of the stuff I get into because, I'm trying to stay up here, on YouTube. And I've already got smacked a couple times. And I don't want to have to go away for a week. But, yeah, it was just some stuff about, like, the JQ. And, I feel, as a lot of people do, whenever they're talking about like a marginalized group or so. Well, in this case, they're not very marginalized. In fact, they're kind of protected. But yeah, a lot of people feel compelled, myself included, to like pull out their CV. Like, hey, I have friends, or my neighbor's black, or they tend to do that, and I try not to, but sometimes I do that too. So, yeah, it's a bit schizo. I'll put it up, though, later. But I also touched upon the whole asset thing and how it's becoming more clear to me that indeed may be a reality. I remember when I first started saying this, I hadn't heard too many other people, or really any other people, bringing that up. It wasn't a theory I came up with whole cloth. It was something that I extrapolated from someone else's idea about assets in this area, in the test area. And then adding on top of it that there is a theory that this place is like a school of some kind, or it was at least, like a soul kind of training place for the progeny of God, for God's children, or more specifically God's child, because we are one thing with different points of attention expressing ourselves as individuals. So the idea was that if that indeed was the case, and I believe it could be, there would be people that would need to be here to facilitate some of these interpersonal tests, or obstacles, or how to deal with, people. So it stands to reason, I guess logic would dictate, that some of the people would be assets. They'd be generated for the sole purpose of teaching lessons, or otherwise it wouldn't work, right? Like, how would that work? And it would be like a tool in the toolbox of this place. And since we've kind of sussed out that the tools that remain here are definitely, tough guy coming through, are definitely being used, and in a lot of cases pegged on 10. And therefore it kind of makes the place a bit of a torture chamber. I don't think all these tools are meant to be used at once in such an extreme way, but they are for the express purpose of getting our energy out of us. Loosh farming. It's a farm. That's why I refer to the controllers as farmers all the time. But yeah, assuming that they're using all the tools that this area has, and why wouldn't they? They use every other tool. It stands to reason that there are people among you, among me, among us out here right now that are not real the same way you. Well, not real at all. They're in what in the video game terminology or video game development terminology would be like an asset. You know, like a tree or a rock. You know, of course they're a little bit more complex. They run certain scripts, like the certain things they say or do to help facilitate whatever test they happen to be there for. I'm just going to dip into the mall here and get out of the sun a little bit. But I mean, it's not a real popular thing to say, you know, and I had to explain myself a couple of times to people because it sounds kind of like you're on Hitler Highway if you're talking about like you know, people they're not as equal, they're not, you know, it's the whole what's next genocide thing, and that's not what, you know, I'm saying. I always add the caveat that you should treat everyone the same way as you'd want yourself treated, because at the end of the day, I think the test was and still is to some degree about the behavior and not so much about a pass or fail. Do you know what I mean? So your behavior is what's scored or looked at or watched or whatever.
It's there.
So it kind of behooves you to be good to people, like even those who aren't, you know, great to you. But yeah, last night I was going into a bit of that, and I was just kind of upset about the amount of people I was seeing still wearing face coverings. Like, we're farthest away, we're pretty far away from the height of that hysteria from a couple years ago. And unless they've been telling people to reaffix it on the news, which, you know, they may have been, I don't understand. I don't understand why I'm seeing so many. And I was talking about those few different subjects, but I'm kind of a brainlet a lot of times, so I wasn't putting it together in my head even as I was talking about it. The people that do mask up are more likely to be these assets I'm talking about that will just do, you know, as the system setting, you know, wants them to, or runs their script to do. There's a lot of, like, I miss a lot of obvious stuff, which kind of gets on my nerves sometimes. But this was a case of where I was talking about the two things and not putting them together. You get it. I'm going to explain it again a second time with different words. I love this area over here.
Go upstairs, Mom.
It's nice at night, too. You got all lights through here. There's a lot of cool spots in this neighborhood to kind of cruise through. But yeah, lately, I brought up the whole JQ thing because lately there's been a lot of talk about it. Because as things get more desperate, people start looking around at well, who's to blame, you know? And that's, I think, their position or their job is to be the front line, take the brunt of the people. Because they're the ones that people can see and they can put together with the paperwork trail that, hey, these guys are doing this. But they're just under, and at the risk of repeating what I was saying in the last video, they're just following orders. They're just bagmen, you know. They're jail cover. Like Corey and Trevor from Trailer Park Boys. They used to take them with them when they would do like crimes and stuff in case they get caught. The boys wouldn't go to jail. Corey and Trevor would. So the Jays are basically jail cover for Satan. And I'm always reminded of the church lady from SNL. Dana Carvey. It was in the 80s, maybe into the 90s kind of meme where every ill of the world she would blame on Satan. And it was funny, and I would laugh too. Yeah, Satan, you know, because you know, you think of pious older folks like that. But with time and you know, a few different lenses affixed, it's exactly what it is. And the thing about having preconceived notions about a group of people is used by both sides as a cudgel. You know, one side uses it in a way, it's like, well, you know, law of averages says, you know, if a pit bull comes walking up the street, I've used this kind of thing myself too, and I'm not going to take the chance that it might be one of the few good pit bulls, the outliers. And then the other side says, well, then that makes you racist. Both Team Red and Team Blue, you just got to both fuck off with that shit. It's holding you in a perpetual idiot ping pong duel. And that's where the problem of assets come in. Are assets out there keeping these talking points going, trying to influence those with divinity to move in a certain way? I think they have a much bigger impact on the situation than just being in the way when you're trying to, you know, buy a drink at a store. The other thing about assets too are those are the ones that are going to report me to the cops for not having a mask on. You know what I mean? They've been weaponized, just as everything else has in this the old test tools in this area. Just some random thoughts on the way to get a birthday cake gelato. I don't usually eat stuff like that, but I space it out so that when I do eat it, I don't feel guilty. So yeah, that's the current mission. Don't blame the teacher, blame the school.